Kurtop here, and these are 100 most incredible artifacts that no one can explain. Bimini Road. Have you ever heard of Atlantis? In the middle of the 20th century, the soothsayer Edgar Cayce said that the remains of this mythical city would be discovered near Bimini in 1968 to 69. And what do you think? In 1968, off the coast of Paradise Point, researchers discovered 700 meters of neatly stacked limestone blocks that are now called Bimini Road. Archaeologist David Zink claims that these are man-made megaliths. Gavin Menzies, author of 1421, The Year China Discovered America, believes that these are traces of the shipwreck of Chinese sailors. And other scientists say that these are just natural formations. So which one is right? Lost City of Gold. Egyptologists expected to find the tomb of the famous pharaoh Tutankhamun, but instead they discovered something incredible, an entire city lost in the sands of time. Unexpectedly for themselves, they unearthed the ancient capital founded by Tutankhamun's grandfather, Pharaoh Amenhotep I. The city was built of silt bricks and was a complex labyrinth. Clay wine jugs found in the city had hieroglyphs that told the story of its founder. It was Pharaoh Amenhotep III. In addition to bricks with the mark of the pharaoh, they also found amulets and even goldfish. Vampires in Poland. The remains of a 17th century child have been found at an archaeological site in Poland with a lock on his leg. The researchers think that the locals were afraid that this child might come to life like a vampire. In the Middle Ages in Europe, many believed in vampires and used various methods to keep the dead in the grave. Recently, archaeologists, including Dariusz Polinsky of the Nicolaus Copernicus University, discovered an unusual burial near Dąbrowa Chelmińska in Poland. It was a woman with a lock on her leg and a sickle around her neck. And here is a new discovery: vampire. The child was only 5 or 7 years old when he passed away. He was buried face down as if his activities were feared even in death. In the Middle Ages, such burials were made so that the deceased bite the ground and did not threaten people. And nearby they found a cluster of skeletons of other children and a fragment of a jaw with a green tint. Most likely, a copper object was placed in the mouth of the deceased, hence this color. Skeleton with intact brain. Imagine a giant 45-hectare mound that looks like a heart in aerial photographs. It is called the Heart of Western Anatolia for a reason. Now comes the fun part. For the first time in the history of Turkish archaeology, scientists have discovered well-preserved skin remains. And what else? Remains of the brain. Imagine the remains of a brain that is already 3,700 years old. Finds of such antiquity are something incredible. They were a young guy, 15, 18 years old, and a middle-aged man. Apparently, their house was set on fire during the Bronze Age, and they did not have time to get out. It's scary to imagine, but it was thanks to this fire that their remains were so well preserved. This amazing mound was the real capital of its region in ancient times, but around 1700 BC it was completely destroyed by attack. And now comes the main question: how is this possible? How could remains of brain and skin survive after such a long time? Thanks to extremely high fire temperatures. This is truly a unique and rare find. Round man-made object found at the bottom of the Sea of Galilee. In the depths of Lake Kinneret in Israel, a huge ball with a diameter of about 50 meters and an age of 4,000 years was discovered. Who, when, and why made it is still a mystery. Researchers from Tel Aviv University and Ariel University tirelessly try to unravel this mystery. They even offered a fresh hypothesis that could possibly explain the origin of this mysterious object. After a detailed study using sonar and analysis of bottom sediments, scientists determined that this giant ball, made from large fragments of basalt, is located at a depth of about 12 meters. Previously, scientists believed that this could be the biblical well of Miriam, the sister of the prophet Moses, who helped the Jews survive in the desert. But now researchers are proposing an entirely new idea. Remember the legend of Akkad, the great hunter with a magical bow who was killed by a jealous goddess? This legend says that the father searched for the body of his son for a long time, found it, and buried it in the sea. Not in any sea, but in the Sea of Galilee. Now scientists want to understand what is hidden inside this giant ball. To do this, they are going to conduct underwater research using an ultrasound machine. Rosetta Stone. When the French were building a fort near the small town of Rosetta, they discovered a strange slab. It was the Rosetta Stone, a piece of a huge stele on which the text was carved in 3 languages. 3 identical inscriptions were carved on the stone, but in different languages. Scientists have been working on deciphering the text for a long time. First, they translated the Greek text, then the Demotic, but the hieroglyphs turned out to be the most difficult. Thanks to the efforts of Jean-François Champollion, who can be called the founder of Egyptology, the secret of hieroglyphs was revealed. Thanks to the stone, we know who built the pyramids, what gods the Egyptians worshipped, and how they made mummies. And this is just the beginning of the amazing story that the Rosetta Stone revealed to us.
Queen Cleopatra's handwriting. Egypt, a land that holds many secrets of the past, has once again surprised the world community. Archaeologists have discovered a papyrus with an ancient decree dating back to 33 BC, which experts believe was signed by Cleopatra herself. This document demonstrates the high status of the Roman officer Publius Canidius, who was exempt from paying taxes. Particular attention was drawn to the Greek word gynistoi, translated as "let it be," written probably by the hand of the queen herself. Such a subject gives scientists a unique opportunity to look into the life and administrative activities of the ancient Egyptian monarchy. Dutch professor Peter van Minnen emphasizes that the structure of the document and the absence of a formal introduction from Cleopatra make the text a personal message from the queen to a high-ranking official. The discovery confirms the hypothesis that Cleopatra actively participated in government, not limited to just the symbolic role of the monarch. The papyrus talks about the close diplomatic and economic ties between Egypt and Rome. Such papyrus, which may contain the handwriting of one of the most famous women in history, is a true treasure for historians and archaeologists. And although many aspects of Cleopatra's life still remain a mystery, each new discovery brings us closer to understanding this mysterious and great queen. Ghosts of Mammoth Cave. Mammoth Cave in Kentucky is not only one of the largest underground systems in the world with passages about 500 kilometers long, but also a place shrouded in legends. Initially used for saltpeter mining, the cave later turned into a tourist attraction. Underground lakes, giant halls, and echoes resounding in the labyrinths attracted curious people from all corners. However, the cave gained its real fame thanks to stories about ghosts. There are rumors among visitors and workers that in the cave you can meet the souls of the dead workers who once toiled in its depths. Tourists often report strange shadows, unclear silhouettes, or inexplicable voices coming from the darkness. There were cases when entire groups claimed to have seen ghostly figures that seemed to be watching them from afar. Legends claim that these are the spirits of miners who died in accidents. These stories add even more mystery to the cave and attract not only nature lovers, but also seekers of the supernatural. Mammoth Cave remains a place where mysticism and history intertwine, creating a special atmosphere. How did the first paper money appear? Long ago, during the time of the ancient Phoenicians, trading was a difficult business. To facilitate the exchange of goods, they came up with the idea of using coins as a universal medium of exchange. However, the coins were heavy and the slaves carried them using special handles. Then the Chinese came on the scene with a revolutionary idea. Around the 1st century BC, they came up with leather banknotes. They were made from the skin of white deer and marked with special marks. They could be used for purchases anywhere in the empire, and refusing to accept them cost a life. These leather money became the progenitors of paper bills that we know today. Around the 800s, the Chinese decided to try to create paper money using the woodcut technique, which is a method of engraving wood and imprinting on paper. But this flying money, as they were nicknamed, was not immediately taken seriously. After all, a paper bill could easily fly away with a breath of wind. Initially, these paper money were used as guarantees for debt obligations, but over time they have become a full-fledged means of payment. Paper money made trading much more convenient. Merchants no longer had to carry heavy coins, and the metal could be used for other important uses. This new flying money was more like checks and was used for large transactions. In just a few decades, paper money has evolved from a credit certificate to a full-fledged means of payment, becoming what we call paper money today. Europe at that time was still immersed in the Middle Ages, but the idea of the Chinese was so breakthrough that it spread all over the world. And so in 1601, Sweden became the first European country to print and put into circulation paper money. Thus began the history of paper money, which we know and use today.
Mysterious stone structure found underwater off Israel's coast. Imagine, a powerful storm covers the Mediterranean coast of Israel, waves wash the shores, and then archaeologists discover a forgotten Neolithic village. Led by Ehud Galili of the University of Haifa and with the help of scientists from Australia's Flinders University, the researchers are opening a window into the past. The inhabitants of this village about 8,000 years ago tried to protect themselves from the advancing water by building a massive stone wall. At that time, the glaciers began to melt, the sea level rose, and the ancient villages, including Tel Hroitz, became victims of flooding. Millennia after the storm, scientists were able to examine the ruins. They found artifacts of the life of ancient people, dishes, tools for the production of olive oil, flint tips, and even the bones of domestic animals. In addition to all this, they found a giant stone wall made of stones weighing up to a ton. It was protection from water for the inhabitants of this village, but even such a wall was only a temporary solution. The waves got closer and closer to the houses, and people were forced to leave their habitual homes. Mummy with golden tongue. Exciting excavations in the northern part of Egypt have led to an amazing find. Archaeologists have discovered a mummy with a golden tongue. The unearthed treasure supposedly exists for about 2,000 years. Excavations took place in the ancient temple of Taposiris Magna, not far from Alexandria, where archaeologists found 16 burials. However, they were not in the best condition. There were even 2 mummies wrapped in a gilded layer that appears to be made from layers of plastered papyrus or linen. One of the mummies had a crown adorned with a cobra and horns. And then we come across an amazing detail: the golden tongue. The thing is that in ancient times, the Egyptians believed that after death, their soul would meet with the god of the underworld, Osiris. The golden tongue was supposed to help the deceased communicate with him. Now, in the Kavaisna necropolis, where excavations are ongoing, hundreds of ancient burials can be found that date back to different historical periods. In other burials, even pieces of gold items in the form of insects and lotuses were found, which were symbols of prosperity and wealth. The oldest mineral on Earth. In 2001, a unique zircon crystal was discovered in Australia, which is recognized as the oldest mineral on Earth. Its age is an impressive 4.4 billion years, which makes it a witness to the earliest stages of the formation of our planet. This tiny crystal gives scientists the opportunity to understand how the Earth cooled and formed in its first billion years. Today, this rare artifact can be seen in the Geological Museum of the University of Wisconsin in Madison, USA. Zirconium is interesting not only for its age, but also because its resistance to destruction allows it to preserve information about ancient processes that took place on Earth, which makes it a real keeper of the history of our planet.
Light-skinned, blue-eyed giants. For centuries, there have been rumors about giant people who lived on Earth in the distant past. Bone finds around the world support these myths. One of the most mysterious places with such finds is Santa Catalina Island off the coast of California. Santa Catalina is a small, cozy island near Los Angeles, part of the Channel Islands archipelago. Its history begins with the settlement of the Gabrielino Indians about 7,000 years ago. After them, both Spaniards and Mexicans visited here until the island became part of the United States. The story of young Ralph Glidden, who moved to the island in 1896, deserves special attention. After finding an Indian skull, he became interested in searching for ancient relics. Growing up, Ralph conducted many archaeological excavations, finding over 800 graves and many artifacts. He sold these relics to museums and private collectors. The Catalina Island Museum, founded by Glidden, is known for its unique exhibits. Among them, the skeletons found by Glidden became especially popular. But the greatest resonance was caused by his application for the discovery of the remains of people 270 centimeters tall. According to him, they had a European appearance, blonde hair and blue eyes. One of the amazing finds was the skeleton of a girl surrounded by the remains of 64 children. According to Glidden, the remains of more than 3,000 people were discovered on the island. Most of them were tall, which was not typical for the Indians. In 1913, German-born physician A. Fürstenen discovered an 8-foot skeleton in Avalon Bay, along with artifacts including a stone with symbols. But when trying to extract it, the skeleton collapsed, leaving only part of the bones. The press actively responded to such reports. The Ogden Standard-Examiner newspaper wrote about Gliddon's findings in 1929, claiming the existence of an ancient tall race on Catalina. In addition, it was said that on the nearby island of Santa Rosa, skeletons with double rows of teeth and 6 fingers and toes were discovered in 1959. Fürstenen also heard legends about an ancient race of giants on Catalina who lived before the arrival of Europeans. However, Gliddon's sensational findings on Santa Catalina remained in question for scientists from around the world. Most scientists believed that he was looking for funding for his research, and rumors said that the skeletons in his museum were only high-quality fakes. According to some sources, part of the giant skeletons was sent to the University of California and the Smithsonian Institution, where they disappeared into secret storage facilities. Archival photos allegedly depicting these skeletons are controversial. There is an opinion that they are fake, but researcher L. Marzulli claims their authenticity, noting the presence of a 6th finger on one of the hands. In 1962, sensing his impending death, Gliddon sold his collection for just $5,000. He passed away in 1967. Today, the question of who Ralph Gliddon was, a master of hoaxes or the discoverer of a mysterious civilization, remains open. Unfortunately, no convincing scientific evidence has been found for the existence of giants on Earth along with humanity.
Melted steps. The stairs at the Temple of Hathor in Dendera raise many questions among archaeologists and researchers. These steps, located in one of the best-preserved temples of ancient Egypt, look as if they were exposed to incredibly high temperatures, which could have led to their deformation and partial melting. The surface of the steps shows unusual bends and recessed areas that are not typical for the normal wear of stone structures. There are various theories to explain this phenomenon. One hypothesis suggests that the steps could have been damaged as a result of some unknown thermal impact. For example, ritual fires or processes associated with ancient technologies. Another theory points to possible construction errors. If the stones for the steps were formed directly on site from a liquid solution, then the interruption of the hardening process could have led to an irregular shape and softness of the material. Scientists are still studying this phenomenon, adding another mystery to the rich heritage of ancient Egypt.
In the Bronze Age, they traded cities. The noisy earthquake in Turkey in 2023 brought not only destruction, but also discovery. In Kahramanmaraş, where everything happened, there is an ancient mound of Tel Achan. There once was the city of Alalak, a real center of the Bronze Age. Alalak was founded in the 2nd millennium BC. It was part of Yamhad, the gigantic empire of that era. Palaces stood there as early as 2000 BC. Immediately, the mysterious Yarim Lim comes across our eyes. Who is he? Brother? Son? This question has plagued scholars for a long time until recent findings point to his fraternal relationship with the ruler of Yamhad. And so after the earthquake, archaeologists discovered a clay tablet. It's got cuneiform on it. It was an agreement on the sale of an entire city. And what is most interesting, the buyer was our Yarim Lim guy. It looks like an old receipt from a store that hasn't been opened yet. For a long time it was thought that cities were donated or exchanged but not sold. This plate changes everything. Sabu's disc. This is one of the most mysterious artifacts of ancient Egypt found in the tomb of Sabu, a descendant of Pharaoh Ajib. It is at least 5,000 years old, but its true purpose remains a mystery. At first glance, it is a stone disc with 3 curved petals, but the details make one wonder. The thickness in some places reaches only 1.5 millimeters, which indicates incredible precision of manufacture. Given the level of technology of that time, many wonder, how was this possible? Scientists hypothesize that the disc could have been part of a ritual or a decorative element, but there are other theories that go beyond the usual. Some researchers believe that the Sabu disc could have been a copy of a device left by guests from the sky, a highly developed civilization that visited Earth in ancient times. The structure and shape of the artifact resemble modern aerodynamic devices or even elements of complex mechanisms. The Egyptians may have considered this object sacred and tried to reproduce something they saw but did not understand. Some believe that the Sabu disk is the key to unraveling the interaction of ancient civilizations with extraterrestrial intelligence. For now, these are just guesses, but the mystical aura surrounding this artifact continues to excite minds and invites us to delve into the secrets of the past.
Ancient tunnels found near Murmansk. Hidden under the city of Murmansk in Russia is a whole system of ancient tunnels. In winter, the entrance to the tunnels turns into a crystal ice kingdom. Rumor has it that these catacombs stretch for tens of kilometers and the height of the ceilings in them reaches up to 12 meters. And what is interesting, they have been known for a long time. They are mentioned even in the text of the 16th century. These tunnels, according to legend, belong to the ancient magical people of the Chakli. They knew all the secrets of the land and the extraction of valuable stones, helped the locals, and, according to rumors, disappeared underground without accepting the new rules of life. Ritual figurines. Built after 1325, the Great Temple served as the spiritual center of Tenochtitlan until 1521 when the Spanish conquerors destroyed it. But thanks to the efforts of the Templo Mayor Project and INH, the history of this temple comes to life again before us. The Templo Major was not just a building, it was a place of worship for Huitzilopochtli and Tlaloc, symbolizing war and fertility. Today, its remains can be seen near the Zocalo in Mexico City. Recent excavations have uncovered the Tepetlacali, a treasury where figurines and various objects were found. These finds tell about the ancient culture and rituals of the Aztecs. According to archaeologist Lopez Lujan, these figurines had special significance in religious rites. A stone chest was also found indicating the reign of Montezuma I, which contained more than 186 relics. These finds are evidence of the rich and unique culture of the Aztecs.
Black granite slab. Heracleion, once one of the greatest ports of ancient Egypt, disappeared under the sea after a devastating earthquake in the 1st century BC. Its existence was long considered a myth until French archaeologist Frank Godot discovered the lost city in the early 2000s in Abu Qir Bay, off the modern coast of Egypt. The most striking find was a massive black granite slab on which the name of the city and details of its connection with the ancient Egyptian gods were carved. Along with the slab, archaeologists found dozens of sunken ships, remarkably well-preserved statues, temples, and many artifacts, including jewelry, coins, and personal belongings of residents. Excavations are ongoing, and each discovered object sheds light on the role of Heracleion as a vital center of trade and religious life. The city, submerged in the sea abyss, remains a reminder of how natural disasters can forever change the course of history.
Discovery rewrites alcohol history. The process of distilling alcohol goes back much further than previously thought. New excavations at the tomb of Liu He, the 9th emperor of the Western Han Dynasty, have revealed that distillation was already known in China 2,000 years ago. Scientists have found a bronze vessel called a heavenly pot, which served as a key part of a wine distillation device. Previously, historical texts only pointed to the emergence of such technologies during the Yuan dynasty, that is, 1,000 years later. Despite his short reign, Liu He left behind an impressive legacy. In addition to the distiller itself, the oldest painting of Confucius was found in his tomb, as well as thousands of pieces of armor made of iron, copper, and lacquered leather. All this testifies to the high level of craftsmanship of the Western Han era. An experiment with a replica of the bronze vessel showed a distillation efficiency of over 70% while preserving the taste and aroma of the drink. Initially thought to have been used for perfume essences or medicine, it is now clear that its primary purpose was alcohol production. The findings provide insight into the evolution of brewing and alcohol practices, complementing historical records and revealing the potential of early Chinese inventors. Silver Pharaoh. In the city of Tanis in Egypt in 1940, Pierre Monte opened the amazing tomb of Pharaoh Susin I. The pharaoh was buried inside 3 tombs. The first 2, made of red and black granite, were reused, that is, they previously belonged to other pharaohs. The third coffin in which the mummy of Susin lay was made of silver, which is unusual for ancient Egypt because silver was more valuable and rare than gold. On the outer side of the red sarcophagus, there was an inscription saying that it belonged to Pharaoh Merneptah, a follower of Ramses II from the 19th dynasty. In addition to the silver coffin, many gold and silver jewelry inlaid with stones such as lapis lazuli, carnelian, and glass paste were found in the tomb. The most amazing thing is that Susen I, also known as the Silver Pharaoh, lived for about 80 years. At the time, this was a real miracle, since very few could live to be even 40 years old. Crown. The oldest crown found to date was discovered in the Nahal Mishmara hoard in 1961 in the Judean desert near the Dead Sea. This amazing hoard included more than 400 objects dating back to the Copper Age. The crown, made of blackened copper, has a diameter of about 18 centimeters, and its upper edge is decorated with 5 figures. Among them are 2 long-necked birds, presumably vultures, stylized doors or gates, and a T-shaped object which may symbolize the hilt of a sword. Along with the crown, a scepter with images of horned animals, a copper wicker basket, and many ceramic vessels and bowls were found in the hoard. Despite the majestic appearance of the crown, scientists do not believe that it was worn by a ruler. Most likely, it was used in ritual ceremonies or funeral rites. It remains a mystery how these treasures could have been kept in a cave for thousands of years. And this crown can be considered the first crown in the form we are accustomed to.
Treasures of Ghana. 2 leading British museums have agreed with the Ghanaian government to return gold artifacts stolen in the 19th century. Last May, the Asante Hene, King of Ghana, met in London with the directors of the British Museum and the Victoria and Albert Museum. It was decided to transfer 32 gold exhibits taken by the British 150 years ago to Ghana for 3 years. In 1874, the British plundered the royal palace in Ghana. In 1896, another military operation took place, leading to further robberies. The museum's joint statement acknowledged that the seized items have cultural and historical significance to the Asante people and are linked to British colonial history. Items being returned include a golden peace pipe purchased at auction for £85, as well as rings, scabbards, soul discs, knives, and necklaces. The British fear that this agreement could become a precedent for the return of other items captured during the colonial wars. Personally, I am very glad that finally valuable exhibits from museums are gradually beginning to return to their homeland. Runestone from Rök. An ancient runic inscription on a stone found in southern Sweden at Edishög is the longest in the world. Many experts believe that this is an epitaph in memory of the warrior Vemudha created by his father. However, Swedish scientists who studied the text concluded that the stone also reflects fear of the coming climate crisis, in particular global cooling. Researchers suggest that the text refers to the consequences of the cold snap of 536, which caused famine, mass migrations, and conflicts. This crisis could have caused the Scandinavian population to halve. The text also mentions battles under the reign of Theodoric, possibly referring to Theodoric the Great. However, scientists believe that there may be an additional subtext: the struggle between light and darkness, life and death. According to archaeology professor Bo Graslund, the text can record terrible natural phenomena such as a solar storm or an eclipse. They could provoke fear of the approach of Fimbulwinter, the apocalyptic winter from Norse mythology. The risen Telamon. This unique Atlantean from the Temple of Zeus in the ancient city of Agrigento in Sicily is one of the most impressive examples of monumental sculpture of the 5th century BC. The temple, built in the Doric style, was considered one of the largest temples of the ancient world, and its architecture reflected the power of Greek civilization. The telamons, which acted as supports, had a symbolic meaning depicting the titanic force supporting the sky or the enormous weight of an architectural structure. These giant statues, about 7.5 meters high, were impressive both in their detail and size. One of the telamons was restored and installed in its original place, demonstrating the complexity of the engineering and artistic solutions of the ancient masters. But there are myths and mysteries surrounding the Atlanteans. Some researchers believe that the images of the Titans could reflect ancient myths about the confrontation between the gods and giants, and their position in the temple symbolized their conquest. Others believe that such sizes and shapes could have been used as images of extraterrestrial beings, which the ancient inhabitants believed in. Gold coins on the site of a pagan temple. All items found in Wingram are truly unique to researchers.
These small square coins, or perhaps amulets, reflect the culture and art of a distant era when the ancient peoples of Northern Europe practiced paganism and created complex rituals using such objects. The discovery in Wingram is an important evidence of the history of the early Middle Ages in the region and evidence of active religious life. Gold artifacts could serve as symbols of wealth and status and also serve a religious or magical function. The fact that they were discovered in the area of an ancient pagan temple only confirms this. Many archaeologists and historians hope that future excavations will bring even more discoveries and help restore the appearance and function of such objects. We may still have a lot to learn about the lives and beliefs of the ancient peoples of Norway.
2,000-year-old fig. Irish archaeologists have made a surprising discovery when they found the charred remains of a 2,000-year-old fig tree on Drumnach Point north of Dublin. The find is important evidence that the Roman Empire, which once considered Ireland untouchable, did have an impact on its culture. Drumnach Point was a key point of contact between Ireland and Roman-ruled England. The fig was the most surprising of the finds made by researchers from University College Dublin. The seeds of the fruit confirm that it was brought to the island at a time when such exotic fruits were considered rare. Figs had previously only been found in medieval strata in Ireland, but this is the oldest known. As well as the figs, traces of spelt were found, a grain widely consumed in Roman Britain but rare in Ireland. The finds show that the Romans not only traded goods but also transferred lifestyles. Archaeologist Christine Baker said that the people of Ireland at the time enjoyed spelt bread, olive oil, wine in used glass, and ceramic dishes, brooches, and beads. Figs, first grown in eastern Turkey and northern India, were carried by ancient trade routes to the Mediterranean, where they became an important part of the Roman diet. Researchers believe that figs and spelt may have been brought through Roman Chester, a major trading post in Britain.
Discovered evidence of a global catastrophe 12,800 years ago. Archaeologists have made an incredible discovery in northern Syria and at the bottom of Lake Assad. They found the remains of houses, tools, and even food that are about 12,800 years old. And that's not all. Next to the finds, the remains of meteorites and melted glass were found. Moreover, similar findings were made in other countries. But what is interesting, in the official history there is no mention of a large-scale bombardment of the Earth by meteorites. An analysis of these finds suggests that about 12,000 years ago a huge number of meteorites hit the Earth, covering the Atlantic Ocean, Syria, India, and Antarctica. And all this time, the traces of this cosmic storm were hidden in the legends of different peoples and under the layer of Earth. Sunken and underground cities, tunnels, and traces of civilizations. These finds are scattered all over the world. What is this? Antediluvian settlements of our ancestors? Or did there exist an underwater super-civilization? What technologies could we lose along with the underwater settlers? Everything points to the fact that in the near future, the world will again have to rewrite the history of mankind. Mummy of Ramesses II. This story is about the mummy of Pharaoh Ramesses II, who moved from Egypt to France. He even had to get a passport for this. And you heard me right. In 1974, Pharaoh Ramesses II, even as a mummy, received a real passport. The Egyptian government was forced to issue it because, according to French law, valid travel documents are required to enter the country. It does not matter if you are alive or a mummy. So, with a passport and the status of Pharaoh deceased, Ramesses II set off on a journey to help preserve himself for future generations in a French laboratory. At the same time, he was met in Paris with military honors, as it should be when meeting a high-ranking official. Ramesses II was the third pharaoh of the 19th dynasty of ancient Egypt in the 12th century and lived for an incredible 96 years. During this time, he managed to build a lot of temples and other structures, including the famous tomb of Ramesseum in Thebes and temples in Abu Simbel. Ramesses II spent most of his posthumous existence in the Valley of the Kings, after which he had to be reburied in a tomb near Deir el-Bahari due to looting. In 1881, his body was moved to the Egyptian Museum of Cairo and then, as you already know, sent to France. Real Indiana Jones find. Archaeologists have made an astonishing discovery beneath one of Jordan's biggest tourist attractions. 12 complete skeletons found in a tomb beneath the iconic structure in Petra known as the Treasury, Al-Khazna. The site was made famous by the film Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. The treasury, which is believed to be a mausoleum, was carved by the Nabatean people around 2,000 years ago. Petra was the capital of the Nabatean kingdom, and its majestic structures carved from pink stone still amaze the imagination. The discovery will help us learn more about the ancient Nabateans. Many other tombs in Petra contained only fragments of human remains, but this tomb contained 12 complete skeletons. This important find will allow us to study the rituals surrounding the life and death of the Nabateans, as well as their way of life, based on the analysis of their teeth and bones. The tomb has been tentatively dated to between the 1st century BC and the 1st century AD, during the height of the Nabatean kingdom, which was annexed by Rome in 106. One of the skeletons was found to contain a ceramic vessel reminiscent of the famous bowl from the Indiana Jones film, adding further intrigue to the find. Used as a seat. An unexpected archaeological discovery has been made in Turkey. A stone that had been used as a seat for decades near a mosque in the city of Fatsa turned out to be a Roman artifact that is almost 1,800 years old. This monument from the Roman Empire dates back to 239 AD and is a miliaria, a stone that marked distances on the roads of the empire. Roman miliaria played an important role in the transport system that covered the whole of Anatolia. Installed every Roman mile, approximately 1.5 kilometers, they indicated the distances to the nearest cities and sometimes contained the names of emperors or officials responsible for the construction of the roads. The discovered stone from Fatsa was dedicated to Emperor Gordian III and was installed to mark the reconstructed section of the port road connecting the districts of Bolamon and Yalikoi. The unusual use of the stone became known thanks to literature teacher Aydin Bal, who drew attention to the unusual artifact near the Laleli Mosque. The study was carried out by local experts. The inscription on the stone, translated by epigraphist Hussein Sami Ozturk, confirmed its Roman origin. The miliarium was originally located along a Roman road but was moved in the 1970s during the construction of a mosque. The artifact has now been sent to the Ordu Museum for further study. Atlantis at the bottom of the Caribbean. June 5th, 8,500 years ago, time 1 p.m. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a mountain-sized asteroid crashes into the Earth. Boom! And its 5 billion tons heat the waters of the Atlantic to a boil. According to one scientist from Germany, this is how the death of Atlantis happened. A lost civilization, which they say was flooded by waves of a giant shaft as high as Mount Everest. The crash site is now called the Bermuda Triangle. Previously, scientists thought that Atlantis was somewhere in the Caribbean near the island of Bimini. They said that the Atlanteans were so smart that they even knew how to create crystals of fire for energy. But it seems that one of these crystals exploded and led to the death of civilization. Skeptics, of course, will say that all this is nonsense. But what about the numerous underwater finds, such as strange pyramids and marble buildings? Roman swords in Israel. In ancient caves near the Dead Sea, where the dry climate has preserved the secrets of past centuries, researchers from Israel have made a startling discovery. In the depths of these caves, they discovered 4 Roman swords. Amazingly, 3 of them were still in their original wooden sheaths. The reason for the expedition was an inscription in Hebrew on a stalactite found half a century ago. This inscription indicated the possible presence of ancient artifacts or objects of cult significance. According to experts from the Israel Antiquities Authority, Jewish rebels may have captured these swords from Roman legionnaires 1900 years ago and hid them for later use in the fight against the invaders. The spathas that were found were indeed the main weapon of the Roman soldiers of that time. They had long straight blades and were double-edged. The 4th sword, with a ring pommel, probably belonged to the pilum, an ancient Roman throwing spear. These swords are not just weapons, they are evidence of an era, a bridge between the past and the present. Such finds are very rare because iron is susceptible to corrosion. But thanks to the unique conditions in this region, historical artifacts have remained intact for centuries.
Lost Bible text. Archaeologists have found a unique 5th century amulet in Turkey depicting King Solomon defeating the devil. The 1,600-year-old bronze pendant is engraved with the ancient Greek inscription, "Our Lord has defeated the devil." This artifact may be related to a lost Bible text that speaks of Solomon's magical powers. Sources claim that during the 1st to 5th centuries, there was a text called the Testament of Solomon, which was not included in the canon. In this text, Archangel Michael gives Solomon a magic ring that allows him to control demons. The amulet confirms that Solomon was perceived not only as a wise king, but also as a champion of evil. The artifact was discovered among the ruins of an ancient military structure in Adrianople, modern Edirne. The amulet probably belonged to a soldier who believed in Solomon's magical protection. The reverse side of the pendant is engraved with the names of the archangels: Azrael, Israfel, Gabriel, and Michael. This symbolizes protection from evil, uniting the traditions of different religions. Azrael is known as the angel of death in Judaism and Islam. Israfel is the herald of the end of the world, blowing the trumpet on the day of judgment. Gabriel and Michael are widely revered in Christianity. The first is the messenger of God, the second is a spiritual warrior. All these names enhance the protective meaning of the amulet. The amulet with Solomon is not just a historical find, it demonstrates how legends and religious traditions intertwine in different eras. The figure of Solomon unites 3 world religions, remaining a symbol of wisdom and strength.
Valley of the Golden Mummies. The Valley of the Golden Mummies is located 400 kilometers from Cairo in the Bahariya Oasis. Here, archaeologists discovered 22 mummies covered with gold and decorated with gold coins and jugs. All these are gifts for the gods. Historians believe that this is the burial place of a prince who lived in the 6th century BC and his faithful servants who were sent to the next world with him. The uniqueness of this find is that since 1999, 200 mummies have already been found here, and each of them is a real work of art. And the most amazing thing is that archaeologists are not going to stop and suggest that there may be up to 10,000 mummies here. Kryptonite on Earth. Jadeite, a mineral discovered in 2006 in Serbia, attracted attention due to its striking similarity to kryptonite, the fictional substance that weakens Superman. The chemical composition of jadeite is almost identical to the kryptonite described in the film Superman Returns, including sodium, lithium, borosilicate, and hydroxide. However, unlike its fictional counterpart, jadeite does not contain fluorine, which gave kryptonite its famous green glow. This is why jadeite is white. The discovery of this mineral has attracted great interest from both scientists and science fiction fans, becoming an example of how fiction sometimes intersects with reality. Jadeite was found exclusively in the Jadar River Valley in Serbia and is of interest due to its high lithium content, which is used in the production of batteries.
Victim of the Curse of Pompeii. An unusual phenomenon is happening in the Pompeii Archaeological Park. Tourists are returning stolen artifacts and asking for forgiveness, believing that a curse has fallen on them after the theft. One of the last letters received by Gabriel Zuchtriegel, the director of the park, aroused great interest. The woman in the letter apologized for taking the stones from Pompeii and talked about her illness, breast cancer, which she was diagnosed with a year after the visit. She admitted that she did not know about the curse and asked to return the stones to their historical place. Zuchtriegel published a photo of the letter on social networks, noting that the stones had returned home and wished the sender good luck. He stressed that the theft of artifacts is a crime that the park is required to report to authorities. According to Zuchtriegel, hundreds of similar letters with apologies and stories about the curse are being received. Many claim that after the theft of artifacts from Pompeii, misfortunes befell them, illnesses, and financial difficulties. In 2020, a Canadian woman returned mosaic tiles, an amphora, and a fragment of ceramics that she had stolen 15 years ago. In the letter, she spoke about 2 cases of breast cancer and financial problems. Nicole explained that she wanted to own a unique piece of history, but now believes that the artifacts contain negative energy. What do you think it was? Did these artifacts really have the magical power of a curse? Or was it karma that overtook the plunderers of antiquity? Write your opinion in the comments under the video.
Obsidian mirror. Ancient civilizations in Mexico used obsidian mirrors or tezcatls as divination tools. Looking into the depths of the mirror, the sorcerers were transported to the world of gods and ancestors. Obsidian mirrors can be seen as a metaphor for the images of ancient Mexican monuments. They reflect not only the object, but also the person looking. The main accessory of the supreme Aztec god Tezcatlipoca is an obsidian mirror. His name translates to smoking mirror. He is often depicted with a mirror on his chest, wearing jewelry, or in place of his right leg. Tezcatlipoca was the ruler of the night and its creatures, primarily the jaguar, which, according to beliefs, could move between the earthly and underground worlds. In 1969, American artist Robert Smithson visited Mayan ruins, following the path of writer John Lloyd Stevens. Despite traveling through Mayan territory, Smithson claimed to embody Tezcatlipoca. This experience inspired him to create a piece of art in which he used mirrors to illustrate time travel. In the early 20th century in Mexico City, Augustus Genin, a Mexican collector of French origin, amassed an extensive collection of pre-Columbian artifacts. Ancient Mexican mirrors from his collection survive to this day in various shapes and sizes. Sometimes they were reused, inserted into Christian crosses, or as symbols of vanity.
Secret sect horoscope. A mysterious scroll called horoscope was found in the Judean desert. It refers to ancient texts associated with the secret teachings of the mysterious Children of Light sect. This unique manuscript has attracted the attention of scientists for its contents, which touch on astrology and elements of mysticism that were practiced thousands of years ago. The scroll is written in Hebrew, but there are symbols in Greek, Aramaic, and Hebrew. A peculiarity of the text is that it is written in reverse order, from right to left, which indicates its special significance for the sect. Dr. Oren Abelman, an expert on the Judean Desert Scrolls, suggests that the text may have been used as instructions to the sect's senior leadership. Horoscope includes a unique belief system that states that a person's date of birth influences their zodiac sign, characteristics in the balance between light and darkness in the soul. According to the scroll, each day of the year is associated with a certain degree of light or darkness, which in turn affects a person's inherent qualities of good or evil. The text also mentions a strict initiation process for new members of the Children of Light sect. The scroll was used to create individual horoscopes where the date of birth determined the personality and physical characteristics of the candidate. This process, according to Dr. Abelman, was not just a ritual but a test of the candidate's ability to fully accept the teachings and customs of the sect.
Sword of Pharaoh Ramses II. Archaeologists are increasingly making discoveries in northern Egypt. Recently, a sword of Pharaoh Ramses II was discovered there. Excavations were conducted in the province of El Buhaira, where architectural blocks were found that were once part of military barracks and weapons depots. In addition, personal belongings of soldiers of that time were found. This find confirms the importance of the El Abqain fort as a key point of the Egyptian army. The sword found is made of bronze and has a cartouche with the name of Ramses II. Weapons, amulets, hygiene products, and the burial of a cow were also found. Ramses II, who reigned for more than 60 years, is considered one of the greatest pharaohs of Egypt. Lost legendary Temple of Hercules found off Spanish coast. On the southwestern coast of the Iberian Peninsula, scientists from the University of Seville were able to find the ruins of the Temple of Hercules Gaditon, lost many centuries ago, a majestic structure where people came to worship from the farthest corners of the ancient world. Can you imagine how an ancient mythological hero can become the hero of modern research? Because this is exactly what happened to Hercules, who in Phoenician mythology is known as Melkart, the god and patron of navigation and the city of Tyre. Thanks to LIDAR and digital modeling, scientists can study the underwater world in detail while remaining on land. Ricardo Bellison, one of the researchers at the University of Seville, suggested that the remains of a majestic temple may be hidden at the mouth of the shallow channel Cano de Sancti Petri. Marble and bronze sculptures of Roman emperors have been found here, as well as figurines from the Phoenician period, many of which can be seen today in the Museum of Cadiz. Scientists were able to identify a rectangular area measuring 300 by 150 meters, where the ruins of the temple itself may be hidden.
Wooden structure, 500,000 years old. Archaeologists from China have made an astonishing discovery at Kalambo Falls in South Africa. They discovered traces of the life of ancient representatives of the genus Homo, which are about 476,000 years old. The main discovery is fragments of a wooden structure, which indicates that these people not only used wood to create tools, but also for construction. The Colombo Falls site itself is an archaeological treasure containing artifacts from various cultures. But this recent discovery has revolutionized the way ancient people lived. Wooden structures dating back to the Middle Pleistocene era prove that people of this time could lead a sedentary lifestyle, engaged in construction and wood processing. Scientists have concluded that these structures were part of a dwelling or other large structure. They may have used them not only for shelter, but also for social or religious ceremonies. However, the question of who exactly was the creator of this architectural heritage remains open. It could be Homo erectus, or another representative of the genus Homo. Scientists now have every reason to believe that ancient representatives of the genus Homo were much more advanced than we previously thought.
Secret tunnels under the Sphinx. A long time ago, photographs showed us mysterious passages penetrating the inside of the Sphinx, a giant statue on the Giza Plateau in Egypt. But official scientists hide these facts, and it is not easy to find a photo with a top view of the Sphinx. Imagine, there are already 6 secret passages. One is on the back of a huge figure, the other is near the ground at the hip, the third is in the middle, the fourth is under the ear, the fifth is right in the center of the head, and the sixth is between the powerful paws. Zahi Hawass, the great curator of antiquities, even personally descended into one of these passages and found a chamber inside. But this is where things get interesting. Now Zahi denies everything. He says that there are no passages in the Sphinx, it's all just cracks from old age. It seems to me that he is starting to cheat. And here's why. The famous sleeping prophet Edgar Cayce spoke of a secret hall between the paws of the Sphinx. Inside this hall is a treasure trove of the history of Atlantis. What if Zahi has been there and wants to keep this discovery for himself? Imagine how great it would be to know the whole history of Atlantis, all its secrets, collected in one place. Do you believe in this story? Write your opinion in the comments.
The cost of building the Cheops Pyramid. We are used to skyscrapers that grow with the help of metal frames and modern technology, but the Cheops Pyramid, built around 2600 BC, still amazes the imagination. Its height reached 146 meters, and only by the 13th century AD did buildings appear higher. To understand how much it would cost to build such a pyramid today, historians and engineers estimated the costs of stone, transportation, salaries, crane rental, and other details. The amount is impressive, about $5 billion. After all, about 2.5 million cubic meters of limestone will be needed, for which you'll have to go to quarries, and for the interior cladding, thousands of tons of granite from Aswan, located hundreds of kilometers away. Add to this designers, geologists, fuel for transporting blocks and giant cranes. In ancient times, everything was done by hand. It is believed that thousands of free workers worked on the construction site, regularly changing teams that received decent food and housing. They moved multi-ton blocks along ramps using wooden rollers and erected a colossal structure that was surprisingly precise in its fit. Even today, it is impossible to fit a knife blade between some of the stones. According to some experts, the construction took from 20 to 27 years. About 2 tons of meat were needed daily to feed the workers, not counting grain, vegetables, and water. It is noteworthy that the project itself was headed by Himeun, the pharaoh's nephew, who actually acted as the chief architect. It was he who coordinated the work of tens of thousands of people, which in itself speaks of the impressive organization of labor in ancient Egypt. Today, the pyramids remain not only an object of historical heritage, but also a source of eternal questions about what humanity is capable of in order to realize ambitious goals. For the Egyptians, the Pyramid of Cheops was more than just a building. It was a symbol of the pharaoh's power and the highest engineering achievement of its time, which still inspires us to bold achievements.
A fragment of a dwelling. This surviving section of a Roman leather tent is a fascinating reminder of the lives of the soldiers who guarded Hadrian's Wall in Roman Britain. Built in the early 2nd century AD, the wall stretched for 117 kilometers, dividing the Roman Empire from the barbarian lands to the north. Fort Vercovicium, part of this defensive system, was an important garrison where Roman soldiers lived and served. The tents were made from dozens of goat skins, carefully stitched to withstand the harsh northern climate of Britain. Each contubernium, a group of 8 soldiers, had one of these tents. It was their home, their resting place, and their refuge from the elements. The manufacturing process was so skillful that the seams and joints provided protection from rain and wind, which was crucial in conditions of constant dampness and cold. but the surviving section of the tent raises questions. How could such a fragile material survive for 2,000 years? Archaeologists suggest that it was preserved by the special conditions of the fort's soil as well as the minimal impact of oxygen. Mystics claim that such tents could have been impregnated with special solutions, the secret of which has been lost. Perhaps this is a legacy of knowledge that the ancient Romans could have received from other, more mysterious civilizations. Temple for a lion-headed goddess. An ancient temple carved into a rock has been discovered in Egypt in the Athribis region. It is estimated to be around 2,100 years old and dates back to the reign of Ptolemy VIII, who reigned from 170 to 116 BC. Known for his complex political and family history, the ruler left behind many monuments, and the new temple was an important find. The walls of the temple contain bas-reliefs depicting Ptolemy VIII making sacrifices to the lion-headed goddess Repet and her son Kolant. Repet was the wife of the god Min-Ra, who was associated with fertility. Archaeologists believe that the temple was dedicated to this goddess, although its name remains unknown. During excavations, scientists discovered a hall where temple utensils and amphora were stored. At the entrance to the room, unique bas-reliefs were found depicting Repet and Min-Ra. Of particular interest is the image of Min-Ra surrounded by decans, the stars by which the ancient Egyptians navigated at night. These stars combine human bodies with the heads of animals such as a falcon and an ibis.
The oldest map of the world has been deciphered. The British Museum has revealed the secret of one of the oldest maps of the world, a clay tablet from Babylon, created about 3,000 years ago. The so-called Imago Mundi, found in the city of Abu Haba, Sippar, in Iraq, has been kept in the museum's collection since 1882. The tablet depicts a simplified whole world as imagined by the inhabitants of Mesopotamia. The center is occupied by a rectangle of the Euphrates River. Around it are circles and rectangles denoting cities, including Babylon. Everything is surrounded by a bitter river, the salty waters of the Persian Gulf, and the Mediterranean Sea. According to cuneiform specialist Irving Finkel, this is a schematic reflection of the space where people lived and died, and beyond it, according to the tablet, there were 8 remote regions. The Akkadian text on the top and back of the map tells the story of the creation of the world and recounts one version of the story of the Great Flood. According to it, around 1800 BC, God commanded King Utnapishtim to build an ark, the remains of which were supposedly left behind a bitter river on a mountainside. A missing fragment of the tablet discovered in 1995 helped scientists decipher the story more accurately. In addition, the Babylonian god Marduk is mentioned, as well as fantastic creatures such as the Scorpion Man and the lion-headed bird Anzu, confirming the rich mythological world of the Babylonians. Witch marks. On the eve of Halloween, representatives of the English State Commission on Historical Monuments made a curious statement. Dozens of mysterious symbols were discovered in one of the best-preserved medieval estates in England, Gainsborough Old Hall. They are called witch marks, although they are associated with witches only in folklore. Gainsborough Old Hall, built in 1460 by Sir Thomas Burgh, is located in the east of England. This impressive estate, not inferior to royal residences, served as a home for the rich and influential Burgh family. They often had to defend their lands from neighbors, and at various times Henry VIII himself visited here. In 1542, he visited the estate with his 5th wife, Catherine Howard, who was soon accused of treason and executed. Perhaps this place also played a role in the fate of Catherine Parr, his 6th and last wife. The building has retained many elements of its medieval appearance, the main hall with a unique roof, the kitchen, and the tower. However, the researchers were attracted by the mysterious signs on the walls. It took 2 years to study them, and interesting facts were revealed. Most of the symbols are in the servants' wing, but some are in the main hall. Among them, the pentagram associated with the imposition of curses and the inverted name Hickman, the owner of the estate since the 16th century, stand out. In Anglo-Saxon and Roman times, it was common practice to change names in spells, but for the Middle Ages, this find is unique. However, most of the symbols are so-called witch marks. These are circles with patterns that were supposed to scare away demons and protect the house from evil forces. Despite the name, their main purpose is a talisman. The signs, for example, could symbolize traps for evil or be used in rituals of sympathetic magic. Often the owners of the buildings also burned the walls to protect the house from fires. More than 100 such traces were found at Gainsborough Old Hall.
Underground room under the pyramids. Scientists from Japan and Egypt conducted a study of the giant necropolis in Giza. Their attention was drawn to a plot in the Western Cemetery. Members of the ruling family and high-ranking officials were buried here. The burials were in tombs with flat roofs arranged in a row. There is a free area between them that has not been previously studied. Japanese and Egyptian scientists examined it using ground-penetrating radar and electrical tomography, which made it possible to look deeper without excavation. The scans showed that at a depth of half a meter to 2 meters, there is an L-shaped structure measuring approximately 10 by 10 meters. The authors of the study believe that this is not a natural formation, but an artificial one due to its regular shape and location. Researchers suggest that this structure may be part of a deeper structure. At a depth of 5 to 10 meters, the instruments also recorded an anomaly, indicating the heterogeneity of the rock. This could be another tomb or an artifact chamber.
The legendary Golden Horse. Not long ago, the news that the legendary golden horse of King Mithridates Eupator was allegedly found near Anapa, Russia, was spreading across social networks. It is noteworthy that similar messages had already appeared in 2021, turning out to be an April Fool's joke. Now, excavations underway in the area of the village of Anapskaya have once again forced people to discuss this story. During rescue operations at a site for a future kindergarten, archaeologists discovered a burial ground about 2,000 years old. In one of the burials, they found not only human remains, but also horses. In others, horse skeletons, glass and ceramic dishes, various beads, as well as weapons and harnesses. Items, including beads made of amber, carnelian, and faience, indicate the connections of local tribes with the ancient world. Among the finds was a scarab, a symbol of rebirth among the ancient Egyptians. Of particular interest were the glass vessels, which were widespread throughout the periphery of the Roman Empire thanks to the improvement of blowing techniques. Despite the excitement, there is no direct evidence that this is indeed the golden horse of Mithridates. Scientists emphasize that legends easily grow, and the rich burial of a noble person may well acquire fantastic features over time.
10,000-year-old chewing gum. 10,000 years ago in what is now Sweden, a group of teenagers chewed birch tar, similar to children chewing gum today. They could not even imagine that in the future, scientists would analyze their chewing remains and find out many interesting facts about their diet, lifestyle, and even health. 3 pieces of birch pitch used as glue in the Stone Age were found in the 1990s at a site called Huseby Cleve. Microbial DNA analysis of the resin showed high levels of bacteria associated with gum disease, such as Treponema denticola and Streptococcus aeruginosus. The study of these samples showed that the ancient teenagers suffered from caries and periodontal disease and also ate deer, trout, hazelnuts, and processed fox and wolf fur. Scientists have also found traces of birds and other animals, indicating their use as food and the processing of bones into tools. Traces of mistletoe were found in the gums of the specimens, suggesting the plant's possible use in medicine or as a poison for arrowheads. The discovery provides a unique insight into the lives of hunter-gatherers on the west coast of Scandinavia 9,700 years ago, allowing us to learn about their diet and dental problems. And we are only talking about very old chewing gum that children chewed. And thanks to modern technologies, they can already tell so much about the lifestyle of people who lived 12,000 years ago. The first vending machine. The city of Alexandria in Egypt was a true pearl of the Hellenistic era, a center of science, culture, and innovation. It was there that the Museum was located, the first prototype of a university in history, as well as the famous Library of Alexandria, which stored knowledge from all over the ancient world. In this city in the 1st century AD, the outstanding scientist and inventor Heron of Alexandria lived and worked. His contribution to science and technology was truly enormous. He studied mathematics, optics, hydrostatics, and also created prototypes of such inventions as the theodolite, odometer, and even a steam turbine with jet propulsion. However, one of his inventions is especially interesting in the context of everyday life. Heron created the world's first vending machine. This amazing mechanism was located at the entrance to the temple and dispensed a portion of holy water for drinking and washing hands. The principle of operation was simple. A visitor to the temple threw in a 5 drachma coin, and the machine released a certain amount of water. The device worked thanks to the weight of the coin, which set in motion a lever that opened the valve. It may seem that such a simple system could be easily deceived by throwing something else instead of a coin. However, modern researchers and reconstructors claim that the machine could be adjusted to a strictly defined weight and size of the coin, which made attempts at fraud practically useless. This mechanism, despite its simplicity, was a brilliant find for that time and showed how progressive the ideas of Heron of Alexandria were.
Ring with a hologram. This unusual Roman ring, found in the tomb of the noblewoman Aebutia Quarta, dates back to the 1st century AD. Its unique feature is the hologram effect created by a masterfully engraved portrait, presumably of her son Titus Carvilius Gemello. Titus, according to historical data, died at the age of 18, and the ring probably served as a tribute and symbol of his mother's grief. The ring is made of gold, and the stone set in the frame is perfectly polished and contains a miniature image. This portrait is unusual for that time. The details of the face look so realistic that they create the impression of a 3-dimensional image, as if looking out from the depths of the stone. This technique of execution was incredibly complex, indicating the highest level of skill of ancient Roman jewelers. But the ring also raises mystical questions. Some believe that its owner could have used it as an amulet connecting her with the spirit of her son, perhaps for advice or protection. The mystery of the artifact is enhanced by the fact that very few similar engravings with this effect have been found, and it is still unclear how such a striking optical illusion was achieved.
Mummified babies. Remember the famous Pharaoh Tutankhamun? His tomb, discovered almost 100 years ago, still provides scientists with the discoveries. In the tomb, along with Tutankhamun, were the mummies of 2 children. There were no DNA identification technologies then, so these findings were kept secret, and the children were nicknamed 317A and 317B. In modern times, DNA analysis has shown that these 2 girls, who did not live to see their birth, were most likely the daughters of Tutankhamun. One of them lived for about 4 months, and the second was almost full term. The researchers think that the girls were some kind of protectors of their father in the other world. After all, the ancient Egyptians believed in life after death and took a lot of things with them to the tomb for protection on a journey to the afterlife. So the story of Tutankhamun and his daughters is another amazing chapter in the book of ancient Egypt. Traces of the gods in the temple of Ain-Dara. In northern Syria, in the arid lands, there is a unique archaeological site of Ain-Dara, a complex of buildings around a majestic central temple, which in its characteristics has no analogs. One of its remarkable features is the giant footprints on the threshold, which are up to 1 meter long, clearly indicating their non-human origin. According to local residents, the traces were left by a deity, and the temple resembles the biblical description of the Temple of Solomon. Temple dating from the Iron Age of the Syro-Hittite kingdoms, which arose after the collapse of the Hittite Empire around 1180 BC and existed until 700 BC, was opened in 1955. Archaeological excavations have made it possible to study its structure and decoration in more detail. The temple rises on an embankment and is surrounded by a gallery. Its foundation is made up of massive basalt blocks. The walls are decorated with intricate carvings depicting geometric patterns and mythical animals, demonstrating the great skill of its creators. The entrance is guarded by lions and sphinxes carved from stone. However, it has not yet been established to whom exactly the temple was dedicated. There is an assumption that it could be dedicated to the goddess Ishtar, but there is no exact data. Giant human footprints not only confirm the structure's connection with ancient myths and deities, but also emphasize its cultural, religious, and mystical significance. However, in 2018, a huge part of this temple was destroyed by airstrikes. Copper object. This mysterious artifact made from a single piece of copper alloy puzzles researchers and collectors. The object, rather crudely cast with visible defects, has a head in the shape of a rectangular prism which narrows on all sides to a sharp edge. The handle, smoothly rounded at the end, shows no traces of blows, which indicates that it was not used for striking in the usual sense. Interestingly, the edges of the head previously had parallel lines and scratches that have worn off over time. This may indicate repeated use of the artifact, possibly in the process of cutting, grinding, or scraping. The estimated dating of the artifact varies between 5,000 and 10,000 years, but the exact origin remains unclear. Some researchers hypothesize that this object could have been used for ritual purposes or as part of an unknown technological device. Alternative history proponents believe that such artifacts could have been part of ancient, highly advanced tools created using technology beyond the capabilities of ancient metallurgists.
Ancient marble disc. The underwater world of the Mediterranean Sea hides not only colorful fish but also the secrets of ancient civilizations. Israeli diver David Shalom made an incredible discovery off Palmacan Beach. He found a 2,400-year-old marble disc at the bottom of the sea. There are only 4 such discs in the whole world. Ancient ships were decorated with such discs, which served not only as decoration but also as protection from the evil eye. These sea amulets looked like eyes, helping sailors navigate the water and warn of possible dangers. This disc has a diameter of 20 centimeters, one side is flat and the other is convex, and most importantly, traces of paint are still preserved on it.
Ritual axe 4,500 years old. In China, in the city of Wuxi, archaeologists have discovered an ancient ritual weapon, an engraved axe that is 4,500 years old. The axe belongs to the Liangzhu culture, one of the most developed cultures in China at that time. This culture lived in the Yangtze River Delta, but when the floods occurred, the people of Liangzhu were forced to leave their capital and settlements. This led to their complete extinction around 2300 BC. Scientists have found 329 stone tools, 73 stone and bone arrows, and many other ceramic and jade artifacts. The most interesting is the axe, on which images of tigers, patterns of clouds, and birds are engraved on both sides. The axe was found on a sacrificial platform and shows signs of wear and damage. Scientists believe that the axe was not used in battles, but in rituals and ceremonies to symbolize power. Liu Baoshan, head of the local archaeological institute, said the patterns on the axe were made with a harder stone tool. This is the first tiger engraved axe found in the region. Now we will dive into history even deeper and find out what our ancestors ate more than 100,000 years ago. These ruins are older than the Egyptian pyramids. Archaeologists have found a mysterious complex from the New Stone Age near Prague, which turned out to be older than Stonehenge and the Egyptian pyramids. The open medallion, built about 7,000 years ago, may have served as a meeting place for local farmers. Its diameter is approximately 55 meters, which would allow the Leaning Tower of Pisa to be placed inside. Miroslav Kraus, director of the excavations, claims that the structure belonged to the pottery culture that existed between 4,900 and 4,400 BC. The first mention of the Vinord Circle appeared in the 1980s when it was partially opened during the laying of communications. Modern excavations have allowed it to be seen in its entirety and have uncovered pottery, animal bones, and stone tools. Analysis of organic remains will help pinpoint the date of construction and possibly link it to a nearby Neolithic settlement. Study of the medallion shows that the culture of its builders spread throughout Central Europe, touching the territories of modern Poland, Germany, and the Czech Republic, where they lived in longhouses that could accommodate up to 30 people. Iron balls at the bottom of the ocean. The German research vessel Sonne, in the waters of the Atlantic, went in search of sea creatures between South America and Africa, but stumbled upon something completely different. At the bottom of the sea, they found dozens, hundreds, thousands of metal balls, each the size of a bowling ball. It was the largest deposit of manganese balls ever found in the Atlantic Ocean. Manganese balls, which often look like pancakes, can be found in every ocean, but the largest ones are usually found in the Pacific. These balls in the Atlantic were special. They were round, which is quite unusual. Scientists think that these balls formed over millions of years, expanding their size by 1 centimeter every million years. The largest of them, 10 million years old, lie at a depth of 5.5 thousand meters.
The Cave Devil. This sinister face, known as the Cave Devil, stares out at visitors from the wall of one of the famous Devil's Caves in West Wickham, southeast Britain. The caves were hand-carved in the 18th century, and their history is closely linked to the Hellfire Club, a society founded by the eccentric aristocrat Sir Francis Dashwood. The club included members of the elite of the time who gathered here to perform mysterious rituals and, according to rumors, even black masses. After Dashwood's death, the club ceased to exist and the caves were abandoned. However, since the mid-20th century, they have been turned into a tourist attraction, attracting the curious and adventure seekers. Among the twisting passages and dark halls, tourists often encounter this carved image suddenly emerging from the cave's darkness, which often causes them real horror. While the true purpose of this devilish mask remains unknown, it fuels legends about the dark secrets of the Hellfire Club. The history of the burial of an ancient Egyptian prince. In a cemetery in Middlebury, Vermont, there is an unusual grave that stands out from the rest. This is believed to be the burial place of the Egyptian prince Amenhotep I, who was born in 1881 BC during the Middle Kingdom of Egypt and died at the age of 2.5 years. His father, Senvose III, later became pharaoh and ruled during the 12th dynasty, famous for his military campaigns and the construction of the Sesostris Canal. The boy's mummy was likely taken from Egypt by grave robbers during the Victorian era and eventually ended up in the collection of a 19th century American museum. Henry Sheldon, a collector and founder of the Vermont History Museum, acquired the mummy from Spanish sailors and stored it in his museum's attic due to its poor condition. After Sheldon's death in 1907, the mummy remained unclaimed until 1945, when museum director George Meade decided to cremate the decayed remains and bury them in the cemetery to avoid possible student vandalism. The tombstone is decorated with a Christian cross surrounded by the Egyptian symbols Ankh and Ba, symbolizing life and spirit. Rebitters and bioducks. If it seems that the sound anomalies associated with marine UFOs were recorded only by American sailors, then this is not so. Soviet submariners also encountered similar mysterious phenomena. In the 1970s, the crews of Soviet nuclear submarines detected strange sounds reminiscent of the croaking of frogs, which quickly spread in the waters of the North Atlantic, especially in areas controlled by NATO. These sounds were so unusual that they became the subject of numerous discussions and hypotheses. The sounds recorded by the acoustics of Soviet submarines almost always accompanied them and moved at an amazing speed, up to 150 knots. However, active sonar did not record any objects that could be the source of these noises. It was assumed that these sounds came from something too small to detect or were even living creatures. For several years, scientists tried to figure out the nature of these strange rebitters, putting forward various theories, from unexplored phenomena occurring in submarine nuclear reactors to vibrations at the boundary of water layers with different temperatures and salinities. However, the Soviet Academy of Sciences put forward a more likely explanation. The sounds were biological in nature and could come from whales or unknown deep-sea mollusks. Submariners, in turn, did not agree with this, believing that the rebitters were too different from any known sea creatures. Over time, a more realistic version appeared, proposed by skeptics. According to this theory, the submariners mistook the sounds of active buoys dropped from NATO anti-submarine aircraft for the rebitting. These devices, equipped with water-filled power sources, could produce noises similar to croaking. This version explains why rebitters were most often recorded in areas of active NATO patrols and why this anomaly disappeared after the collapse of the USSR. Sailors of the Royal Navy of Great Britain, in turn, recorded similar noises, which they called bioducks, from the English onomatopoeia of quacking. These sounds were recorded in the waters around Australia, where in the 1960s, the most important nuclear testing grounds for the British fleet were located. Since patrols in these waters by the USSR or the USA were unlikely, the British also initially associated these sounds with marine life. It took scientists more than 50 years to establish the source of the bioducks. It turned out that the strange sounds are made by southern minke whales, whales that, before a deep dive, unexpectedly make this sound. Ritual cocktail composition. For the first time, scientists have been able to study the organic remains inside an ancient vessel that is 2,000 years old.
The study has shown that the ancient Egyptians consumed a special ritual cocktail that included fruits, nuts, alcohol, biological fluids, and psychotropic substances. The vessel, known as the Be's mug, was studied using innovative technology developed by scientists from the University of South Florida together with colleagues from Italy. This is the first time that it has been possible to identify the full chemical composition of a ritual drink, including its psychotropic and medicinal components. Be's mugs were dedicated to the Egyptian god of the same name, the patron of fertility, healing, and protection. He was depicted with a crown of feathers, large eyes, and a tail. Such vessels were used from the 16th century BC to the 5th century AD, and the specimen under study dates back to the Ptolemaic period. The analysis showed traces of honey, grapes, sesame, pine nuts, licorice, and hallucinogenic components. Scientists assumed that the mixture was used in magical rituals. People were looking for confirmation of a successful pregnancy because in ancient times it was considered a dangerous and unpredictable process. Such a cocktail probably caused visions, helping to establish a connection with the deity. Honey in Africa. Honey is humanity's oldest sweetener, and for thousands of years it was the only one. Petroglyphs dating back 8,000 to 4,000 years have been found on various continents, hinting at the importance of bees and their products. Ancient Egyptian reliefs show evidence of beekeeping as early as 2600 BC. However, until recently, there was no direct archaeological evidence of honey collection in sub-Saharan Africa. A study of chemical food residues on pottery shards has changed this idea. Archaeologists from Goethe University, working with chemists from the University of Bristol, have discovered traces of beeswax in 3,500-year-old pottery shards belonging to the Nok culture. This culture, which existed in central Nigeria from 1500 BC to the beginning of the Common Era, is known for its terracotta sculptures, the oldest figurative sculpture in Africa. The researchers wanted to understand whether the Nok people domesticated animals or were hunters. However, in the acidic soil conditions typical of the Nok region, animal bones do not survive. So the scientists turned to the analysis of molecular food residues in the pottery. Plant and animal products leave stable chemical compounds, especially lipids, in the pores of clay vessels. Using gas chromatography, these compounds can be detected after thousands of years. The study revealed not only the remains of wild animals, but also components indicating the presence of honeybees. About a third of the examined pottery shards contained high molecular lipids typical of beeswax. This is the first direct evidence of honey use in Africa. It is not yet possible to determine exactly how honey was used. It is possible that the Nok people separated honey from wax by heating. They may also have used honey for cooking, making mead, or for technical and medicinal purposes. It is possible that the clay vessels served as beehives, as is still practiced by some African peoples.
The oldest meteorite. Meet Erg-Chech 002. Not a simple meteorite, but a whole great-grandfather from space. It is already 4.6 billion years old. It was found in the Sahara Desert and holds the record for being the oldest volcanic rock on Earth. This is an andesitic achondrite, one of the first space inhabitants. Scientists from Australia decided to find out all its secrets. Understand how the planets were formed and what happened in the solar system at the dawn of its existence. But our old man has prepared a surprise. The isotope aluminum-26 was the main source of heat in the early evolution of the solar system. In addition, by its quantity, experts usually determine the age of meteorites. But it turned out that at the beginning of the existence of the solar system, this aluminum was distributed unevenly. So the old methods of determining age are no longer so accurate. This discovery changed the ideas of scientists. Now, to find out the age of the space inhabitant, we need a new approach.
Ancient love for sweets. People developed a love for sweets long before their diet changed, and scientists have found that our ancestors were ready for it thanks to ancient DNA. The AMI1 gene, which is responsible for breaking down complex carbohydrates, appeared much earlier than previously thought and may have played a key role in the development of civilization. The digestion process begins in the mouth, where saliva contains amylase, an enzyme that converts starch into simple carbohydrates. It was previously believed that this enzyme arose with the onset of agriculture when bread and starchy foods appeared in people's diets.
However, a study by the University of Buffalo and the Jackson Laboratory, USA, has shown that salivary amylase existed more than 800,000 years ago, long before the advent of agriculture.
Long before the advent of agriculture, a study of ancient genomes, including people who lived 4,500 years ago in Siberia, revealed that they already had 4 to 8 copies of the AMI1 gene. This suggests that the mutation responsible for amylase synthesis arose as a result of natural selection. Moreover, this gene was present in both Neanderthals and Denisovans, which confirms its ancient origin. The comparison also showed that modern Europeans, especially farmers of the last 4,000 years, have an increased number of copies of this gene, which is associated with a change in diet.
Incredible discovery under the Nile. Archaeologists have made an amazing discovery under the Nile in the Aswan area, a collection of ancient Egyptian artifacts and rock carvings dating back to the era when the city experienced a massive flood. The relics date back to the reigns of pharaohs such as Amenhotep III, Thutmose IV, and Psammetichus II. Aswan, about 4,500 years ago, was an important trading and military center. Gold, wood, and spices were exchanged here, and local granite quarries supplied materials for the construction of temples, obelisks, and pyramids. However, after the construction of the Aswan Dam, most of the city was underwater. A Franco-Egyptian archaeological mission discovered unique rock reliefs depicting pharaohs, hieroglyphic inscriptions, and other sculptural elements. The work was carried out using modern technologies such as underwater scanning, photogrammetry, and 3D modeling. These methods allowed us to document the artifacts we found in detail and create digital copies of them. Of particular interest are the images of Amenhotep III, who ruled Egypt for about 40 years and left a rich legacy. His burial place was in the Theban necropolis on the west bank of the Nile, opposite modern Luxor. Unfortunately, many monuments associated with his era were damaged by floods, but the new find gives hope for the restoration of these historical relics.
Found the frequency at which people hear underwater as well as seals. Danish researchers believe that people whose ears were adapted to life on land in the course of evolution are still able to hear quite well underwater. Back in the 1950s, scientists were trying to figure out how our auditory perception works underwater. Even U.S. Army doctors have studied the effects of underwater explosions on divers' hearing. Both humans and marine mammals took part in the new experiment, and Danish scientists found that the average human hearing threshold underwater is 71 dB at a frequency of 500 Hz. This is 26 dB lower than previous studies have shown. This confirmed that people hear much better underwater than previously thought, and our hearing can be compared with the hearing of such aquatic inhabitants as cormorants and seals. For example, seals and dolphins are able to hear underwater sounds that are not picked up by the human ear. Previously, scientists assumed that we hear underwater due to bone conduction of sound, but new results show that underwater sound is amplified primarily by resonance in the air chamber of the middle ear.
6,000-year-old human DNA. In the city of Wuxi, China, archaeologists have discovered the DNA of a person who lived here 6,000 years ago. These molecules were found in 2 tombs associated with the Middle Neolithic Majiabang culture. Until now, information about the inhabitants of this region has been limited. However, thanks to new finds, it became known that the first people settled in Wuxi at least 6,000 years ago. During the research, which began in April 2022, more than 100 traces of ancient human activity were found, including 2 tombs with DNA.
Pot of burnt porridge. In one of the oldest villages in Germany in Oldenburg, LA7, archaeologists discovered a unique treasure, fragments of an ancient pan. This find tells us about the culinary preferences of our ancestors more than 5,000 years ago. They also cooked porridge. Lucy Kubiak-Martins, a renowned archaeobotanist, shared some impressive details. Chemical analysis of the shards showed traces of grains such as spelt and barley, as well as protein mari seeds similar to quinoa. Interestingly, sprouted grains were found, which indicates ignorance of ancient methods of grain drying. This is the first time traces of cooked food have been found on pottery in Neolithic Germany. Mummy of Amenhotep. Scientists were able to unwrap the mummy of King Amenhotep I, which is more than 3,500 years old, without removing a single layer of embalming linen. They were helped by advanced X-ray technologies and computed tomography. So, with the help of scanning, the researchers were able to see the face of the ancient king, found out his age, height, and state of health at the time of death. The generated 3D images showed that Amenhotep I had an oval face with a narrow chin, a small nose, and slightly protruding upper teeth. Based on the analysis of the bones, scientists determined that he died at the age of about 35 years and was generally healthy. Interestingly, Amenhotep I's brain was not removed during the mummification process, which is unusual for pharaohs of the New Kingdom such as Tutankhamun and Ramesses II. He was also buried with 30 amulets and a belt with gold beads. The original tomb of Amenhotep has not been found, but his mummy was discovered in Luxor in 1881. By taking thousands of very thin tomography sections of the mummy and combining them, the scientists formed a complete 3D reproduction of the king's body. Flooded cemetery found in Egypt. Heracleion is a huge port that arose on the coast of Egypt in the 8th century BC. The place was so popular with Greek merchants that they even built a cemetery here. The secrets of this cemetery were revealed thanks to modern methods of underwater archaeology. In the graves, archaeologists have found a huge number of artifacts, including fine Greek pottery. Near the port, they also discovered many sanctuaries built by the Greeks. But what is even more exciting is the discovery of an antique ship. It sank in one of the channels and hid under a 5-meter layer of clay and silt. Ceramic drainage system. 4,000 years ago, the rains in China were so strong that up to 50 centimeters of water could fall in a month. But the Chinese of that time did not sit idly by. They built an awesome drainage system to fight this water madness. Each house in Pinglientai village had its own mini-ditch, and these grooves were there for a reason. They ensured the safety of every inhabitant from the water element. And in the squares and in public places, giant ditches were laid which were connected to ceramic pipes. These pipes, like a puzzle, were assembled from separate sections and directed water away from the settlement. And most importantly, these antique pipes are still in great shape. Ancient Christian Church. Archaeologists have discovered the remains of an Armenian church almost 2,000 years old, making it one of the oldest in the world and the oldest on Armenian territory. The University of Münster in Germany, which collaborated with the Armenian Academy of Sciences on the excavations, called the find sensational evidence of early Christianity in Armenia. The church was found during excavations in Artashat, which was once a thriving metropolis and the capital of the ancient Armenian kingdom. Experts believe that the church was built in the 4th century AD, the same time as the Etchmiadzin Cathedral, the first Armenian church and considered the oldest in the world. The building is the oldest archaeologically confirmed temple in Armenia. It is the first known octagonal church in Armenia. Similar structures are found on the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea and also date back to the 4th century. The church resembled early Christian memorial buildings with a diameter of about 30 meters. The floor was made of a mixture of sand and cement, and the walls were made of terracotta, probably brought from Greece or Italy. Scientists also found traces of wooden platforms, which allowed them to accurately date the structure using radiocarbon dating. Black sarcophagus. All over the world, the famous sarcophagus is spoken of as the find of the century, because inside the stone coffin everyone expected to see Alexander the Great. Many were afraid to open the sarcophagus because of the ancient curses associated with the story of the tomb of Tutankhamun when the expedition members began to die. But archaeologists are sure curses are just horror stories, and so the sarcophagus was opened, and inside, 3 skeletons. Apparently they were warriors because one of them has a fractured skull. But there are no golden masks, no jewels, meaning this is not Alexander the Great. Now these mysterious skeletons are in the Alexandria Museum for further study, and we continue to believe that one day the sarcophagus of Alexander the Great will still be found. It seems science recognizes that there are still many unsolved mysteries associated with the pyramids and their keepers. Great minds are struggling with the most complex mysteries of the past, but it seems that the ancestors have safely hidden their biggest secrets. Secrets that you will see on this channel. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Watch this video as well about the findings frightening scientists around the world. See you on Kurtop.